This is your daily dose of all things royal. Well, aren't we lucky? 2 more excerpts from Tom Bower's Betrayal have been released this weekend through the Times, and we're going to go through them. So grab a cozy beverage and get comfortable because it's story time. I, too, get to make mistakes. How Meghan put herself first. After Megxit, the Duchess of Sussex relentlessly pursued her dream of being a global figure on the world stage. Ultimately, she was thwarted by her own ego, Tom Bower says in his explosive new book. In the countdown to the big moment, Ella Robertson read Meghan Markle's proposed speech on the auto cue. "She's effed it," groaned Robertson. Instead of speaking as agreed about the charity One Young World, Meghan's speech was focused on herself. Nearly 50 times in just 10 minutes, she intended to say, "I." On September 5th, 2022, Meghan was due to address 2,300 people for One Young World's conference in Manchester. Founded in 2010 in London, the organization brought young leaders together every year in a different country to discuss global challenges. The co-founder, Kate Robertson, and her daughter Ella had been nervous about inviting Meghan to Manchester. Megxit was still a hotly emotional topic. Harry and Meghan had only left the UK in March 2020, and the Sussexes' anticipated return to Britain from California had excited intense speculation. In Manchester, Meghan's publicists demanded tight scrutiny of ticketing to exclude any protesters, a ban on spectators standing outside the venue, and all journalists were to be excluded from the hall. Only Omid Scobie, a trusted author, and the photographer Misan Harriman were to be given access to the event. Harriman's photo would be published only in Town & Country magazine, not the mainstream media. Any protest that the media restrictions would damage Meghan's request to be globally positioned as a philanthropist was dismissed. Risks were unacceptable to the Duchess. "I've been abandoned," complained Harry days before the event. Stressed about their security, Harry had been told that the Home Office refused to provide armed protection in Manchester and London. But with Meghan's insistence that her appearance was essential to sustain her brand, he decided to risk assassination. At least Manchester police provided extra cover to avoid a major incident, and a whole rail carriage was reserved for the journey from London to Manchester. Although the public would be barred from access to the royal carriage, Harry later complained about the dangers he faced because of his proximity to the public. Escorted amid a standing ovation onto the stage, Meghan, wearing a red outfit, adopted her rictus Hollywood smile while Harry clapped with what was now arguably his perma-scowl. Meghan had abandoned the build theme, ethical leadership. How can we instill transparency, honesty, and integrity as core values for leaders? To Ella Robertson's anger, her speech praised One Young World, who saw in me what I wanted to see fully in myself. And over the next 10 minutes, she spoke exclusively about herself and her rise to fame. At the end, the audience clapped politely. Almost exactly 3 years later, arriving in Britain in September 2025, Harry planned to promote himself as the smiling, generous royal serving the people. To this end, he gifted £1.1 million to children in need and, unusually for a royal, advertised his donation. To some, it appeared as mitigation money. His only gripe was the absence of police protection. Once again, he urged the Home Secretary to reconsider. The public's welcome for Harry exposed the royal family's vulnerability. Beset by illness and strife, the royals were testing the public's support. As an opinion poll reported, the shine was fading. The monarchy's popularity had fallen from 86% in 1983 to 51%. No less than 38% of Britons wanted an elected head of state. 4 days earlier, a senior Buckingham Palace official was adamant that the king would not meet his son during the trip. But at the last moment, Charles agreed that, after flying down from Balmoral for his weekly medical treatment, he would let Harry visit him at Clarence House. That morning, according to a visitor in Balmoral, the king looked very gray. Their first encounter after 19 months lasted 54 minutes. Harry gave Charles a family photograph, but no photo of the two was taken or released. Although Harry's publicist would brief that their meeting was the beginning of a thaw and reconciliation, a newspaper reported that it was distinctly formal, like an official visit. 4 days later, under the headline "Reconciliation in the Air," an anonymous insider was quoted, "If any details of the meeting emerge or there is any commentary, it will be back to square one." By then, though, Harry had already broken his promise of silence. Throughout these months, Meghan separated herself from Harry's woes, plotting instead how to restore her status in America. Selling her as-ever products depended on making repeated appearances at star-studded events, especially after her second series, With Love, Meghan, ranked 383 on Netflix's chart. Critics of the series were puzzled by the contrived enthusiasm between Meghan and her guests and doubted any particular attraction of the as-ever sprinkles and wine. Few could grasp Meghan's pitch for $14 raspberry spreads. The word jam had been discarded because her concoction was too runny. Supposedly, the spread was carefully produced in her own kitchen, surrounded by caring friends and her excited children, rather than manufactured in Illinois, who, those same critics wondered, aspired to copy someone who claimed, "I think there's a lot of value when you anchor into your own knowing." Undeterred, as usual, by any shortcomings, Meghan planned the sale of her Christmas collection, including a signature fruit spread gift set, priced at $42 a candle, scented with Moroccan mint, cardamom, and tea leaves, which for $64 promised to evoke the freshness of a day in the English countryside, and sage honey with honeycomb, which for $32 held a special place in Meghan's heart. Topping the products was an unexceptional bottle of white wine for $89. Meghan's staff and agent were galvanized to negotiate engagements in Hollywood, Los Angeles, Washington, New York, and Paris. The prelude to her publicity blitz was an unexpected appearance at Kevin Costner's annual Santa Barbara party to support the local emergency services. The previous year, she had disdained the event, but now her need for publicity overrode any concern. Overdressed for the event, she was wearing $325,000 worth of jewelry, her publicist revealed. Inevitably, it included a piece originally owned by Diana. On little Betty's 4th birthday, Meghan first thanked Disney in what appeared to be a paid promotion. "Thank you, Disneyland, for giving our family 2 days of pure joy." Next, while Trump heaped praise in his speech on William as a remarkable son during his triumphant state dinner at Windsor Castle, an Instagram video appeared of Meghan caring for strawberry plants in her garden. In reserve was the revelation that she had secured a cameo appearance playing herself in Close Personal Friends, a small-budget Amazon film to be shot in Pasadena. And then she made a surprise appearance at Paris Fashion Week. The coup was masterminded by Meghan herself. Balenciaga had been canceled in 2022 for featuring children alongside fetish-themed teddy bears. In the aftermath of the uproar, Balenciaga had hired a new creative director, Pierpaolo Piccioli, previously employed by Valentino. Meghan had worn a few of Piccioli's costumes. She called him with a suggestion. In return for all her expenses, she would make a surprise entrance at his show. In the battle against their rivals for publicity, Balenciaga calculated Meghan's proposal was a no-brainer. Nicole Kidman was paid millions of dollars by Chanel, so $250,000 for Meghan's expenses was comparatively cheap. Accompanied by her makeup artist, Daniel Martin, a stylist, and a press spokesman, Meghan secretly arrived on October 4th in the Plaza Athénée Hotel, the rendezvous for every fashionista visiting the capital. She was assigned the $22,000 per night four-bedroom suite. None of the assembled photographers around the hotel knew where she was heading as she walked through the lobby, dressed in a stunning Balenciaga white trouser and cape outfit. For a brief moment, the spectator of fashion shows had transformed herself into a glittering performer. Even the Empress of Fashion, Vogue's Anna Wintour, was already sitting at the Balenciaga show looking at two empty seats beside actress Tracee Ellis Ross. 20 seconds before the lights dimmed, Meghan made a royal entrance. By then, the photographs of her exit from the hotel were zooming around the world. "You look wonderful," Wintour told the Duchess after the show. The only hiccups during those minutes were actress Kristen Scott Thomas appearing to turn sharply away as Meghan started to speak to her. A video posted of Meghan laughing after a model slipped on the runway, and a self-made video posted by Meghan of her drive back to the hotel in a limousine, insensitively passing the site of Diana's fatal crash in 1997. That evening, she did not go to Balenciaga's after-party, but headed to a restaurant with Soho House's Marcus Anderson. Once she had posted a glowing testimonial to Piccioli. She recalled that they had worked closely together, collaborating on design for key moments on the world stage. This evening reflects the culmination of many years' artistry and friendship. Hours later, Piccioli dismissed Meghan's version of events, telling The Cut magazine that he had not invited her to the show in Paris. She had instead asked Piccioli whether she should come. Next, Meghan was with Harry in New York to receive the Humanitarians of the Year award from the insignificant Project Healthy Minds group, who were delighted by the publicity she bestowed. She later appeared on stage at Fortune magazine's Most Powerful Women event in Washington. In between these events, she posted a video clip of herself with 4-year-old little Betty on International Day of the Girl. Her caption was the hope that her daughter would become an activist. And then some cracks started to appear. Together, Meghan and Harry looked tired. In New York, they seemed to be arguing after Meghan pushed Harry's hand away. There was good reason for the tension. In her latest bid to reposition herself from a fashion plate into a powerful, commercial, and mature influencer of consequence, Meghan had approached Harper's Bazaar, her trusted promoter, to signal the transition to her new status. Or, as she would like to call her make-or-break bid for commercial success during 2 lengthy interviews, her own next chapter. Harper's agreed to feature Meghan on the front cover of its valuable Christmas issue with the caption, "Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, meets her moment." Taking a risk, Meghan had agreed to pose for a series of photographs showing a mature woman, seemingly without makeup, or, in the industry jargon, no makeup. The resulting cover picture did not flatter the 44-year-old. Neither did the other photographs of her modeling clothes and jewelry, nor the interview. After years of uproar, Meghan's protest to Harper's Caitlin Greenidge that because of Megxit, she had lost her agency and her humanity, was guaranteed to rile the victims of her Oprah interview. Angered by the clamor of her critics, she intimated that her desire was to break through that noise so people see that she is authentically trying to be herself. Puncturing that image, Greenidge sneaked one mocking anecdote into her article. As she entered the house for the interview, a butler announced, "Meghan, Duchess of Sussex to an empty room. As usual, Meghan steered the interview into two familiar zones. First, her children. I hope they see the value of being brave, she said. Bravery, according to Meghan, was her children watching her cook, when the jam was just a pot on the stove bubbling. Secondly, she spoke about Harry. He loves me so boldly, fully. No one in the world loves me more than him. That endearment was followed by a revelation about her husband. You have someone who just has this childlike wonder and playfulness. Her only error, she admitted, was trying to be perfect. That, she said, was not a lot of fun, not least because I, too, get to make mistakes. They were not listed. In common with all her previous interviews, Meghan's moment was another step on the familiar treadmill to establish her relevance and importance. But in delivering her thoughts and childhood memories, Meghan once again revealed a lack of any substance. After hours of interviews, even the favorably disposed Greenwich described a woman whose fame was entirely based on her marriage. While declaring on the launch date of Netflix's trailer for her new series and before announcing the Harper's interview, Meghan's publicist spotted that Kate would be attending the Royal Variety performance in London on the 19th of November. A clash, but also perhaps perfect timing. For Meghan, meeting her moment in the days before Christmas was make or break. If all those carefully organized events failed to relaunch her in 2026, the Sussex's future would become bleak. Now, the next excerpt, how Prince Harry went to war with his charity boss and lost. Donations canceled, orphans abandoned. Tom Bauer's new book uncovers the turmoil at Sentebale and why his coup against its African chairwoman failed. Thousands of miles away from his problems, Harry smiled on arriving in Japan with Nacho Figueres, a suave 46-year-old Argentinian polo player and the face of Ralph Lauren. Both played for California's Los Padres polo team. Alongside Nacho, Harry felt on home turf. Harry's trip in August 2023, 2 months after Spotify had humiliatingly canceled the Sussex's $20 million podcast contract, was financed by the International Sports Promotion Society, founded by Handa, a Japanese billionaire. Over the previous 10 years, it had raised £10 million for Sentebale, Harry's charity in Lesotho and Botswana, and was committed to donating a further £1.5 million over 3 years by sponsoring an annual polo match in America and Singapore. Since the charity's annual turnover was about £3.5 million, Handa's donation was important. To fulfill the sponsorship deal, Harry had agreed to participate in a panel discussion in Tokyo about the combined value of sport, community, and philanthropy before heading to a polo match in Singapore. My life is charity, always has been, always will be, Harry told the audience. I could happily live here, he told his hosts. Possibly, Harry was being truthful. Japan would be an ideal haven from his overwhelming problems. But by the end of the panel session, Harry had become unhappy. His trip, he discovered, had been mismanaged and Sentebale was facing a crisis. Harry had first visited Lesotho in 2004 at the age of 19 during his gap year between leaving Eton and entering Sandhurst. 2 years later, he and Prince Seeiso of Lesotho co-founded the charity in honor of their mothers to help the 1 in 4 adults who were HIV positive in the nation, the world's second highest national rate of infection. Sentebale, which means forget-me-not in Sesotho, had survived early difficulties. In 2008, it emerged that just £84,000 of the £1.1 million raised through events, including a concert in memory of Diana and a TV documentary featuring Harry, had been spent on helping orphans with AIDS. The charity's first director had been paid £100,000 a year, plus the perks of a 4-bedroom villa with staff and a private education for his 3 children. Thousands of pounds had also been spent on offices and a fleet of new 4x4 vehicles. A new chief executive had rescued the charity, but by 2022, many of the 560 rotating local staff, caring for about 78,000 children, were complaining about their pay and conditions, not least because 1/3 were facing disciplinary proceedings. A camp financed by a donor for £250,000 had been effectively abandoned. Harry had not ordered Sentabali's chief executive, Richard Miller, to visit Lesotho since his appointment in 2019. Locals in South Africa assumed that Harry was uninterested in the turmoil. Indeed, after his arrival in Tokyo, it looked to be true. Harry's anger that day in Japan had apparently been triggered by Honda's loud executive director, Midori Miyazaki. Having agreed to just one intimate dinner for 20 people, Harry discovered that Miyazaki had also arranged for him to speak in an arena to more than 2,000 people, followed by a gala dinner for 250 guests. He also realized that very few had ever heard of Sentabali. Peeved that he was being manipulated and exploited by Miyazaki, Harry complained to Sentabali's new chairwoman, Sophie Chandoka. Appointed weeks earlier, Chandoka, a Zimbabwean Oxford graduate and a senior associate at the global law firm Baker McKenzie, was flummoxed but not surprised by Harry's irritation. Sentabali faced a watershed, she believed. For nearly 20 years, Harry had spoken about his devoted attention to Sentabali, but he had not visited Lesotho for 4 years and appeared to be unaware of the crisis. Chandoka's appointment had followed a search by headhunters for a replacement for British marketing executive Johnny Hornby, chairman since 2018. In 2021, Hornby had signaled his exit after 12 years working for the charity. Chandoka was now in charge of Sentabali's finances. Annual expenditure of roughly £3.5 million was never completely covered by income from UNICEF and foundations. A windfall had come in 2021 when Harry contributed £1.1 million from the profit of his memoir Spare, but making the charity dependent on the book disturbed pro-royalist donors. Another potential casualty Chandoka discovered was Miyazaki. She had exploited Harry in Tokyo because she knew that Harry relied on Honda's donation, but Miyazaki failed to take into account Harry's moods. Harry, Chandoka discovered, hated talking about money. He expected Chandoka to resolve all the problems created by her predecessors. At the outset, Harry praised Chandoka's experience, passion for social change, and entrepreneurial spirit. Between 2015 and 2019, she had sat on Sentabali's board and in 2021 had received an MBE for services to diversity in business. Over the years, Chandoka had worked for Meta, Morgan Stanley, and Virgin Money. She had also advised a slew of public companies, including Nike, Citibank, and Alliance Boots. She will bring, Harry said, a tremendous benefit to Sentabali's next chapter. With that experience, Chandoka told Harry a harsh truth. Sentabali was struggling. Gleaming SUVs were parked outside its Lesotho headquarters, but some HIV children in the villages appeared to have been abandoned by Sentabali. The charity's employees in Lesotho had presented a petition to Natoli Molstein, Sentabali's county director, criticizing their pay and conditions and questioning the director's use of the charity's funds. The two directors, based in London, Richard Miller and Graham Lee, were earning £350,000, plus many extras, and, in her opinion, were overpaid and underperforming. Chandoka had asked Ian Ralston, a former banker who had been based in South Africa and was now attached to Global Philanthropic, to support a review of the charity strategy. During her intensive conversations with Harry in Tokyo, Chandoka added that proper governance had become an essential condition of every charity's funding. Corporate sponsors, Chandoka told Harry, were no longer willing to hand over money without their experts confirming, after due diligence, that Sentabali followed the rules of governance. Sentabali's amateur accounts and traditional fundraising by Harry and his chums, a smile and a handshake, were unacceptable to potential corporate donors. Harry nodded, but with hindsight, Chandoka realized he assumed that while she would do the governance, he would retain control. She should find new donors, but he didn't envision any change. What Harry wanted, Harry got. On their flight to Singapore, the outspoken lawyer introduced another unpleasant reality check. Corporate brands hate controversy. After conducting a brand audit among 50 organizations and donors, she told Harry she had discovered that his personal brand value had crashed. People don't want to be associated with your Netflix shows, and especially not with Meghan, she reported. The survey also discovered that Meghan had little brand value in America. Across the globe, she actually damaged Harry's remaining brand value. Accustomed to being hailed as box office, Harry was stunned. Johnny Depp, he replied, had still attracted a lot of money despite his bitter courtroom battles with Amber Heard. Couldn't he do the same? Times have changed, Chandoka replied. The proof was in the finances. Following critical comments about Harry and Meghan on the Polo Club's website and suspicions about Harry's acceptance of a $1 million fee for addressing an investment conference in Florida, American Polo sponsors had canceled their donations and Audi had withdrawn its annual $1 million sponsorship. They don't want to be associated with a page 6 story, Chandoka told Harry, referring to the New York Post's gossip column. Eyewitnesses at the polo match in Singapore noticed Harry's coolness towards the new chairwoman. Before Harry left Singapore, Miyazaki revealed that Honda was considering ending his sponsorship of Sentabali. Sentabali, Harry told Chandoka, was relying too much on his money and his polo matches. He would only commit to future polo matches if the profit was doubled to at least £700,000. Chandoka realized that Harry hadn't listened. He did not want to register that Spare and the Netflix series had damaged his brand value. By September 2023, Harry had understood Chandoka's warning. At Sentabali's board meeting, Harry agreed to close the charity's London office, move the management to Lesotho, and find more American donors. Most importantly, the charity would abandon its unique focus on HIV sufferers. Instead, under Project Pivot, Sentabali would promote children's health and education. The transformation matched the ambitions of the staff in Lesotho and Botswana. Finally, Harry agreed to re-engage with Sentabali by flying to Lesotho in late 2024, his first visit in 5 years. At the same meeting, the trustees considered Harry's brand value. The more you ascend, the less oxygen you have to tell the truth. Jonathan Mildenhall, a marketing expert introduced by Chandoka, told Harry, Spare should have been called Duty. Mildenhall continued, Your image is bad. The prince was told raising money in America would be difficult because you're not special. How come no one told me? Asked Harry, puzzled by the term brand audit. The solution, Harry agreed, was to abandon the poor rich prince narrative and go back to basics. Americans love a comeback story, said Chandoka. We need American corporates who want to be associated with your mission, not you personally. They don't want your victimhood. We've got to pitch it right for the young philanthropists. It can't be Africans with a begging bowl. To restore goodwill, Chandoka met Miyazaki for dinner at Nobu in New York. After sending back several bottles of champagne for lacking enough bubble, Miyazaki expressed her outrage that Harry objected to his overexposure in Tokyo. Shortly afterwards, Chandoka repeated Harry's request that Honda double his annual donation to £1 million. Miyazaki's anger soared. Insulted by Harry's ingratitude for her loyalty after every other sponsor had pulled out, Miyazaki confirmed that Handa would no longer support Sentabali's polo matches. With that, she ordered an Uber and disappeared. That night, Sentabali lost 23% of its income. The Nobu bust-up was reported to Harry, who is thought to have blamed Chandoka for losing the sponsorship. Midori says that she won't sponsor us unless you leave. He told Chandoka on a Zoom call. He went further. Your brand audit has damaged me. You shouldn't have done it. Harry implied that he had suffered psychological harm from the audit. Harry repeated Meghan's alarm. Chandoka's audit had also damaged his wife. The Zoom meeting ended on an unsettled note. After his trip to southern Africa in October 2024, Harry returned to Montecito committed to bringing Sentabali under his control. He and his old friends on the board unleashed the Sussex machine on me, Chandoka complained. In her opinion, Harry and other white privileged men were undermining a black woman. That imbalance of power, thought Chandoka, amounted to bullying. The attempted coup failed. In March 2025, Harry resigned from Sentabali, along with his co-founder Princeso and the board of trustees. In the charity's next annual report, Chandoka would boast that Sentabali's annual income had remained roughly the same at £3.3 million. All the institutional donors had continued their support to the benefit of 78,000 children. The charity's future without Harry, she reported, was secure.
Such a fraud.